Hello, Silver Birch Express online book club members. So nice you could join me again today. Now, this is our new book. This is our fourth book because our first reading was two books in one reading, and then we had our Go Show the World the last time. Now we're going to stay in our First Nations, Indigenous, Aboriginal theme, and we're going to meet Tom Longboat. Now, I read this little biography in class in the library. However, we're going to read it again, and then I will have some activities that go with it. So, meet Tom Longboat, world famous Onondaga runner who broke both records and stereotypes, okay? On a cold and windy April day in 1907, long time ago, guys, Tom Longboat beat a crowd of top runners to win the famous Boston Marathon. His exhilarating, record-breaking performances earned him legions of fans in Canada and around the world. But there is more to his story than being a famous athlete. Tom volunteered and bravely served in World War I. He was a dedicated family member and community member, and Tom didn't always win, but he always worked hard with his head held high. Tom did things the way he knew was right and achieved success on his own terms. Now, this is the same kind of book we read. Remember Viola Desmond on the $10 bill? And we don't have Chris Hadfield yet, who is the astronaut, Canadian astronaut. Anyhow, let's move along and find out more about Tom Longboat. Okay? Let's go. This was written by Elizabeth MacLeod, illustrated by Mike Dees. Tom Longboat raced to the finish line as the crowd cheered wildly. One of the top runners in the world, Tom amazed and excited race fans. With a big smile on his face, Tom often found the energy to zip ahead at the end of his races. Other runners would be left behind, gasping for breath. Tom liked winning and hearing the crowds cheer for him. But most of all, Tom loved to run. What a runner! Tom's the best! Go, Longboat! Tom was born in Oshwekin on the Six Nations Reserve near Brantford, Ontario in 1886. A long time ago, guys. An Onondaga name is Gagawege. It means everything. Tom's family grew vegetables and raised farm animals, but Tom's dad died when Tom was just 5 years old. The family became very poor. Tom had many chores to do, but he still made time for fun. He liked to chase after the cows. Sometimes Tom would run with his cousin. People got used to seeing the two boys racing all over the reserve. Already, Tom loved to run. Tom, please run and get some firewood. Move, cow. You can catch me. When Tom was 12, he was taken from his home and sent to a school for Indigenous children. What was that school called? The residential school. We talked about that in November during First Nations Month. He and other kids had to be residents there. So places like this were known as, like I said, residential schools. Remember the orange shirt? The orange shirt story? Yes, well, that's where that took place. Tom hated it. He was forced to give up his family and friends. He wasn't allowed to speak the Onondaga language. The children were treated badly and even beaten. Class, English only, or you will be punished. I will never go back there. In his second year at the residential school, Tom escaped and ran home, but he was found and dragged back. A few weeks later, Tom ran away again. This time, he went to the home of his uncle, who hid him. Tom was finished with school. No, they're catching up! When Tom was almost 18, he entered his first race in May 1905. He lined up with other runners in Caledonia, Ontario. Tom led all the other runners for the most of the race, and he ended up coming in second. He didn't like that. He wanted to be Yeah, first. In 1906, Tom entered the famous Around the Bay Road race in Hamilton, Ontario. He was racing against some of the best runners in the world. No one thought Tom would do very well, but he had learned from his first race and trained carefully. See, he learned from his mistakes, guys. Tom kept up with the other runners. In fact, he sprinted past them at the end. Even though Tom took a wrong turn near the finish line, he won in record time. Who's that kid? That's Tom Longboat. Ooh, he's so fast. Tom, why aren't you training? I am training. More walking? People are saying you're lazy. I ran yesterday. Today is a good day for a long walk. Tom didn't train the same way other runners did. They ran long distances every day, but Tom would do a long run one day, and the next he would play lacrosse or walk. People put Tom down for the way he trained. They blamed his Indigenous background, but switching between hard workouts and easier ones is how runners train today. Tom knew better than anyone what the best way for him to train was. Goodness, look at Tom Longboat. He moves so differently. He barely lifts his legs. Maybe that's why he's so fast. I hear he doesn't even train. The way Tom ran was different too. In those days, most runners took long, high strides with their hands up and still. But keeping his feet close to the ground and his hands low, Tom saved energy as he ran. Not every race ended up with a win, but Tom was beginning and becoming known as a top racer. One of the most famous long-distance races in the world is the Boston Marathon. On April 19, 1907, Tom was at the starting line with the other runners, ready to run. Snow and sleet flew in their faces as cold winds blew. About 40 minutes into the race, Tom was one of the front runners. Then he noticed a train barreling down the track in the distance. It was going to block in the race route. That would force Tom to stop, and he'd lose his lead. Tom put on a burst of speed to beat the train. What is he doing? Mercy me! He's trying to outrun the train! He'll never make it. I can run faster. Ooh, look at that, the distance, guys. What? How? I can keep up. If I can outrun a train, I can run out anyone. The marathon was almost over. Tom and another runner from Canada named Charlie Birch, far ahead of everyone else. The exhausted racers headed toward the steep hills near the end of the race. Charlie decided to take the hills slowly and save his energy. Not Tom. He attacked the hills, running faster than ever. That sprint put Tom far out in front, and he won the race. Back in Toronto, where Tom was living, crowds had gathered around telegraph offices. They held their breath, waiting for updates on their hero. Everyone was so happy to receive the news that Tom had won. Tom's the world's top marathon runner. Longboat won. He won. He beat the record by 5 whole minutes. When Tom returned a few days later, tens of thousands of people were waiting for him at the train station. Bands played and people cheered. A huge crowd paraded him to Toronto City Hall for an official reception. Tom Longboat was famous, not only in Canada, but all over the world. You're top dog, Tom. Huzzah, Longboat, huzzah! Thank you. I thank you kindly. The Olympic Games were scheduled to take place around London, England in 1908. Everyone expected Tom to easily win the marathon event, but Tom knew it would be a tough race. London was in the middle of July, a heat wave. The race was scheduled for the afternoon, but not the cool of the morning. The air was hot and humid as the runners lined up to start at Windsor Castle. I hate running on cobblestones. They're so bumpy. There's a lot of hard pavement in this course. Phew, it's quite hot. The royal family is watching. Gulp. When the Olympic marathon started, Tom was running well, but he was having trouble breathing because of the heat. Other runners were falling down in the hot sun. They were so exhausted that they couldn't go on. Would that happen to Tom? He'd never give up in the middle of the race. Tom was one of the front runners when disaster struck. He collapsed on the road. His heart was racing, and he was so tired he was shaking. Unable to finish the race, Tom had to be carried off the course. His Olympic dream was over. Tom was so disappointed that he thought about giving up running. "We need a doctor over here. I just can't keep going." But Tom loved running too much to stop. So in December 1908, Tom agreed to race Dorando Petri, a top runner from Italy. Dorando had also collapsed during the Olympics. Fans wanted a rematch. The two men had to run around the track at Madison Square Garden in New York until they had done the same distance as a marathon. Crowds yelled as the runners circled. The pair had run 256 laps when Dorando suddenly collapsed. The crowd cheered as Tom finished the race and won. "I'm getting dizzy. 250 laps down, 12 more to go." 2 months later, Tom faced off England's top runner, Alfie Shrub, at Madison Square Garden. Tom got off to a slow start. Alfie was ahead by 8 laps before the race was half over. Then, Tom started to close the gap. Alfie had begun to tire. Tom caught up. When Tom passed Alfie, the English runner gave up. Tom was now the world professional marathon champion. But big changes were ahead. Tom Longboat. "Hey, do you know who you look like?" "No, who?" "He is the real Tom Longboat." In 1914, World War I broke out. This was a series of battles that took place mainly in Europe, but countries around the world, including Canada, were also involved. Tom wanted to do his part, so he gave up his running and all the fame and prize money, and he enlisted. At first, Tom ran races to help entertain the soldiers. Then, Tom went to France to fight alongside other Canadian soldiers. He was with the 107th Pioneer Battalion, a group of soldiers made up of mostly of young Indigenous men. Tom carried messages and orders between soldiers and their leaders, racing over the rough, muddy ground. He was shot at and wounded twice. Once, he was injured so badly that he was declared dead. That one was close. Another time, Tom was leading a general through dangerous territory. Tom was moving quickly, trying to get him to safety. "Slow down! Who do you think I am? Tom Longboat?" But the general couldn't keep up and ordered Tom to slow down. It was only then that the general realized who his famous guide was. Tom was so glad when the war ended, he returned to Canada in 1919. "No, sir, that's me." After the war, life was very different for Tom. Running was not as popular. He had been replaced by team sports such as hockey and baseball. Tom was still fast, but he couldn't make money from racing anymore. He had to get a new job. Eventually, he found work as a street cleaner and garbage collector in Toronto. Some people made fun of him for having a job like that because he had once been so famous. "Remember when he used to be a winner? He's not winning anything now. What a sky! I love working outdoors." That's what he was saying. Then in the late 1920s, the Great Depression hit countries around the world, including Canada. Many people lost their jobs. People couldn't buy food for their families. Many had nowhere to live. But Tom always had work throughout his tough time. He took care of his family, and they lived in a nice house. "He's home! Dinner is ready, so wash up!" Tom retired in 1944 and moved back to the Six Nations Reserve. It was good to speak the Onondaga language again. Tom enjoyed seeing old friends and family and being more connected with his community. 5 years later, Tom died. But this world-famous athlete has never, ever been forgotten. You're walking to Hagersville. That's hours away. Of course, look at the beautiful day. In 1951, the Tom Longboat Award was created. Every year it's given to top Indigenous athletes. Tom was made a member of Canada's Sports Hall of Fame in 1955. In 2008, June 4 was named Tom Longboat Day in Ontario. A race in his honor is run on this day each year. Tom would have loved these awards and honors, but most of all, he just loved to run. Bet you can't catch me. Now, this is Tom Longboat's years, and this is all of his life and all of the years from July 4th, 1886, he was born, all the way to 2016, where the Boston Marathon officially recognizes Indigenous runners for their contributions to long-distance running. So this timeline is so important to the knowledge around Tom Longboat. And they even have pictures of him. There's a picture right there. Can you get in close to see? There's the real Tom Longboat. He leads the race while huge crowds watch. Wow. And that's the story of Tom Longboat. What a great story. I love these books. Now, all of these historic people, Canadian people, that are from Canada, Viola Desmond, Chris Hatfield, Tom Longboat, all of these people. And I also think we had, at school, we have another one. I can't remember now. Oh my goodness, I forget. Anyway, I'll figure it out for next time. But this is our book for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. And until next time.